Welcome back to the Purple Winds podcast, where we explore resilience, learning, leadership, and the choices that shape remarkable careers across industries and continents. I'm your host, Mina Johl, and today I'm excited to sit down with Daxin Zhang, Vice President at RBCX in Vancouver. He's an MBA classmate of mine from Ivy Business School. His story spans environmental consulting in the oil sands to now advising some of Canada's fastest growing technology companies. What I admire about Daxin is not just his career trajectory, but the mindset shifts he's embraced at each stage of his career. From managing risk in the field to building financial solutions for entrepreneurs and mentoring the next generation of bankers. Daxin, let's start at the beginning. You studied environmental science at UBC, worked in reclamation at Suncor, and even ran your own consulting startup before entering finance. Looking back, do you feel like you chose banking or did banking choose you?
Thank you for having me on the air, Mena. It's a very interesting question. I thinking back, well, most parents they started their career in the bank, so it's kind of ironic that I come back in circle. In a way, when I graduated from MBA, I chose the leadership rotation program at RBC. So I guess in a sense, I chose the banking career, but it has taken me to new grounds that I never thought I would be. Like RBCX essentially is a startup bank within the big bank with a focus on tech companies specifically. So we bank, we advise, we acquire, and we build tech companies. So yeah, in a sense, it was completely different from my previous role at Suncor and my own startup as well.
What were some transferable skills from the environmental consulting days to your banking time that took you by surprise, but that have been very useful for you along the way?
Yeah, so I try to kind of, every time I change to a new role or try to leverage everything I learned to kind of apply myself to my next job, I would look back, like you said, what are the transfer skills? So for me, from my consulting days, it was more on business development, so B2B sales, and also focused on managing complex relationships. I think those were very kind of comparable because at the end of the day, my role is still focused on sales. You got to bring new revenue. So a lot of time was kind of making warm introductions, cold calls. You're going to be a little thick-skinned to take notes a couple of times before you can succeed. So perfecting your pitch, kind of constantly learning, improving, and also learn about your clients along the way. So that's definitely number one. And number two is learn to say no yourself. Meaning, in the corporate world, there's 100 different initiatives. In the beginning, I made the mistake of spreading myself too thin. I remember in the beginning, I was a member of 7 different committees because essentially RBCI was a startup. There's so many things we could do, so many threads we can pull on. So over the years, I've basically learned to prioritize and focus on the task at hand. So I manage now, like I build and manage the biggest tech portfolio in Western Canada. So on a day-to-day basis, I got to execute on the plans, on clients' requests, and as well as kind of building more long-term strategies, build long-term plans, and kind of develop the next kind of generation of bankers. So yeah, so those 2 skills I would say that kind of surprisingly very useful in an old corporate world.
When I look upon my own time in B2B sales, I do tend to agree with you. It's a little bit of taking the punches as you roll, but it's also a lot of learning when to say yes and what to say no to. I'm curious, how did the pivot from environmental consulting and the oil sands over to the financial world reshape your own definition of learning and professional growth?
Yeah, it's a great question because I'll tell you 2 things. One is that through the MBA program, the concept of money completely changed to me, both on the professional side and on the personal side, or like wealth management, and also financing as a whole. It was a kind of like eye opener to the MBA process about how the money market works. Also working with my clients, I learned from them their entrepreneurial spirit, their willingness to take calculated risks and plunge into something innovative that never been done before. This bit of scary. It's like going into the darkness. So I constantly learn from my clients. And also I take as 70, 20, 10, what we call learning programs. So 70% was on the hand, like on the roll. 20%, I would say, is more kind of structured learning, whether it's in class or with self development, as well as RBC provides a lot of training opportunities on leadership and other hard skills. Another 10% is just kind of by chance. You learn from others, your coworkers, you learn from your parents, your friends. So it's kind of open mind, open eyes. And also on the professional development side, I mentioned earlier, I learned a lot about how money works in the program, but to the MBA program, it's more focused on hard skills like market analysis, financial modeling, accounting. Whereas on the job, you learn a lot of soft skills, how to deal with issues, how to navigate the corporate ladder, the corporate politics, and also lots of HR related issue that comes up along the way. So basically, you kind of take the foundation and then you build on top through kind of everyday experience and cases.
I find it very interesting that you use the 70-20-10 model. I'm more familiar with the 70-20-10 in working in oil and gas and nuclear power, where they use it as a distribution of what you learn in class being the 10% to what you then go practice, like you said, in the field as the 70% that helps with the retention. And then the 20% sitting in between is what you learn from peers and people that you work with.
Yeah.
Very interesting how the model translates in different
Yeah.
industries.
Everybody has their own kind of way of learning, I figured. Some people learn better at class situations, more control, the more kind of managed process. Others prefer the freestyle, like self-learning. And that kind of model just sort of kind of what works for me. But I understand everybody has their own way of continuous learning.
You've worn a lot of different hats. I remember when we used to be together trying to grab all the concepts of learning at the MBA school. And for anyone considering a 1-year MBA, it's a very intensive 1 year that you get yourself into. You had to take off the hat of environmental science and put on the hat of the new money learning that was coming to you. In that 1 year, for example, what moments clarified your own preferences when it comes to soft skills?
So yeah, that 1 year was definitely very transformation for myself. I think pivot two, 3 times about what I want to do, about all the opportunities out there. I think I imagined in the beginning I want to be an investment banker until they told me that nobody's going to hire you unless you have previous finance experience. So that was like a hard moment from the learning point as well. But it's coming back to the origin, you gotta be willing to reinvent yourself continuously. From the oil fields to my consulting to my office job. You gotta I don't think you have one person throughout your whole life. Like say I wear different hats. You just gotta be able to reinvent yourself to adapt to the market, adapt to your need. And outside my work, I'm a father, a husband. I also play on a soccer team. But all those things just kind of build who you are, part of who you are, and then you also be willing to try new things. Because that's how I feel like that's how you grow. I think maybe our parents' age is very common for someone to be in a job for 30 years. But nowadays, be as said, the social norms now, it's more common for people to change roles, change banks, change field throughout their life. I understand. I've seen that a lot with my clients who used to be engineers. Now they are doing planting trees or doing quantum computing something. They kind of learned along the way, and they're able to spot these opportunities because they were open minded, because they were willing to take risks and innovate themselves. So yeah, I was kind of learning from all my clients and from my colleagues as well.
And that is indeed one definite thing that I do remember from you, from being with you together in class, is that you maintained an open mind, even when it confused you. You were so open to learning and always asked questions about another person's background, their learning, their experiences, what worked, what didn't work, that I found was special about the way that you approached your MBA. And a lot of us made pivots after the MBA, but the level of curiosity that I saw you come in with and explore each and every different option that was available, I think you truly, in a lot of ways, did make the most of the MBA time. And I've noticed you being described as someone who blends optimism with a very sharp capability to analyze risk. Could you maybe take me through an example of when balancing those two traits guided you in making an important decision?
That's a good question. I'll be honest. Like, sometimes I try to think through from engineering, try to anticipate, all the possible outcomes making a decision. But the reality, there's just so many things you cannot predict, and you have to kind of make up plans on the fly. But also, it's kind of a fun experience from my old field days. When you field work, the biggest variable was the weather. That can make or break your days, right? So you have plan like ABC, you have the actual plan, the backup plan, the contingency plan. You do what you can to kind of mitigate those risks. Try to plan for everything. Obviously, when the black bear comes, you're just gonna run. You're not gonna stay there. But in my current role, like I've more small execution on those plans. Because like doesn't matter how good the plan is, if it doesn't get done, doesn't get executed, then there's no results, right? So now it's more focused on planning on how to execute properly, and that goes back to like you gotta have a good team, and kind of what I learned is like my guess my if you're gonna ask me if it was like leadership style, I would say something more like a servitude leadership. Like I focus on like what can I do to make my kind of team job easier? Do they have too much on their plate, or can they want to challenge themselves? Like what can I do to alleviate any of the process? Do they need information that I can help them get from their clients? Just gonna help them to do better at their job, such as telling them what to do, try to show them what to do, and also kind of say, is there any obstacles, upskills training required? Do you need additional resource? Of course, we kind of everybody operates in a resource constrained environment now, but you do best you can to kind of motivate your team, kind of to lead them forward, because like sometimes, especially in the downturn market that we're facing right now, it kind of creates new opportunities. You have to be very like thinking outside the box, kind of leverage everything you got internally and externally, to kind of execute on those like big projects. So like, am I optimistic? Yes, I kind of take a little bit long-term plan. Because I see myself be here for a while. I don't think it's like another month or another 2 months. Just take a long-term plan. Maybe we're not successful in this project. What can we learn from it and do better next time? You can have to take those calculated risks as well, like what can and cannot work, because there's always multiple projects on the go. You don't have so much time and resource, so you just have to pick your priorities. And for me, it's like kind of like the 20-80 rule. Like 20% time, you can get 80% of the work done. So that's kind of how I prioritize.
I love how the Pareto rule still continues to guide us through our day-to-day decision making and how we invest ourselves into one action as opposed to the other. And we've been through this in more detail, but what I really like to call your style of functioning is, in two words, it would be collaborative accountability, taking charge when you're inviting input also from the people who work around you and your teams and peers and maybe your superiors as well. Give me a sense of how collaborative accountability has helped you lead teams at RBCX.
Yeah. So as much as I want to take the credit that I built the tech portfolio myself, but like no, I definitely it's a team effort. There's no way I could have, you know, built my portfolio from like 89 million to over 400 million today by myself. I definitely rely on coworkers from across the country. And the challenge for me a lot of times that because we're only 15 of us in Vancouver, or the rest of like 600 people team is in Toronto. So there's a little bit of a gap. We'll find communications, a bit of regionally or time differences. I try to again. I try to go back to the beginning, like we're all working towards the same goal. Like we have this mission together. It's not like I'm just doing my job, you do your job, but we're in this project together. We sign up to build this tech bank from ground up. Like I was one of 32 founding members to build this practice. And of course, along the way, we have pivoted multiple times, like 4 times in 5 years, be adaptable to the market changes, investor sentiment, regulatory changes, valuation, and also like, now navigating tariffs. We're all in this together. So a lot of time, let's try to be like generous, help others when we can. We're all busy, but I think a little bit gesture or nice gesture goes a long way. Like I said, especially you want to be here for the long term.
When people feel heard, they feel welcomed, they feel included, and they usually tend to push themselves further and achieve more, is a recurring theme that I uncover to as many leaders as I speak to through this podcast. So thank you for echoing that. Let's move on to talk about your learnings from RBC and particularly the technology banking industry. It seems that at RBC, your RBCX, to be more specific, you're helping technology companies scale, which is a very different world as compared to traditional banking. What has been your biggest personal learning from working so closely with founders and entrepreneurs? And I think I have the answer to that, but I'll let you get into more depth with it. And
Yeah.
how is banking seen often so conservatively, while startups are moving fast and often very high on risk taking? How do you bridge that cultural gap for your clients?
Mhm. Yeah, I'll answer the I guess the second one first, like what I learned from my from this role. So like I think the whole reason we started RBCI is a bank to recognize that in Canada, particularly, there isn't a specialized products, lending products, deposit products, and services dedicated to that sector. It's in Canada, it's relatively new tech. Only developed last 20 years since the .com. Whereas in the US, it's a much more deep roots from the early days of Microsoft, IBM. So that's why we can start this whole new bank. It's literally like a RBCX is a small bank inside a big bank. We have different mandates, we have different policies, we have different type of mentality, and we have different kind of skill sets than the typical bank. Just gonna shy away from like this is not another like extension of the traditional banking, which is like I said, it's considered very conservative. This is brand new. We're a much younger team. A lot of us on the team are ex-entrepreneurs ourselves that we have their own startups. Like I said, also acquired and invest directly with startups. So it builds that culture. Almost our portfolio companies kind of reflected to how we manage risk, how we see a particular deal from different lenses. And when to other bankers, and obviously they're really surprised at what we do. Like we lend money to companies that's still burning cash. Like how does that work? So we had to build complete different framework, right? To complete different metrics and success factors that we can evaluate our clients. That's completely different than the traditional DCFs or valuation model. So that's why it's kind of the business is very challenging. Like I said, there's 32 of us. We're just kind of boots on the ground. We can build a process on ground up. It was really kind of like the hustle, and it kind of resonates with me because I enjoy this kind of fast paced entrepreneurial spirit. In a sense, for me, it was like you build your own portfolio on B2B sales, so it's more like you eat what you kill in a sense, right? And in the beginning, our competitors were mostly American banks, like the Silicon Valley, Comerica, JP Morgan. So in a way, it's like we are a bit sheltered. So we have a little bit more time to test our products in a completely new industry. No other Canadian banks have done. Nowadays, if you log onto those websites, you see, oh, every bank has a tech practice. But 5 years ago, that was not the case. We were the only one. So you got to take a leap of faith because like I was asked to join this team when it was like a secret mission. We didn't even have a name yet, but based on my entrepreneurial experience, based on my tech industry knowledge, I was tapped on my shoulder to join this project. They didn't give me a raise or anything like that. I was just like, we'll see where this goes, and then we can talk about pay later. So it was just kind of leap of faith, like any kind of tech startup or any new business for that matter. Is like you got to take a leap of faith. You can bet on yourself. And really believe in the mission. For us, is to build the tech ecosystem in Canada. So that's what experience like I learned managing risk, managing people, and also building tech products, which I never thought myself doing when I was going to my MBA. But yeah, here I am, adapting to changes, taking on new responsibility. And I'm curious what the next 5 years will take me. Who knows?
I was in conversation with one of our MBA professors recently, and they asked me how it feels almost 10 years post the MBA beginning. And I said, it feels like a world of a difference. Stepping out of the MBA, getting my degree day one, it didn't feel like I had learned so much, but I guess that was the impact of such an intensive program that you come out feeling like you don't know anything differently. But then when you move past that time and with every little increment in terms of time, you keep on realizing that the learning is now really assimilating in the system. You and I didn't come from a background where we could tell DCFs from DFCs or any other acronym any different before the MBA. But look at us now. We're talking about DCFs and valuations like we've lived and breathed this data and this information all our lives. And that is the true power of learning. But it also speaks to the resilience and the continuous growth that you and I, along with a lot of our classmates, invested in ourselves with. I want to learn about one particular theme because, in the essence of this podcast, we talk about resilience, not just bouncing back, but continuously learning and keeping those ropes connected between us and the final end goal. You've been recognized for both persistence and innovation through your career. How do you personally stay in a cycle of growth without burning out, looking at all of the speed and the skill that you're working with?
Yeah, I'd be lying if I'd say I never thought about quitting. Burnout is a true thing. Like first time I burned out was in my job in the field after the first 2 years and working long hours, 15, 14 days, with no end in sight. I was ready to quit after 2 years, and then like, no, wait, we'll promote you, we'll give you a different role. And same with RBCX. There's a lot of challenging times where I ask me like, what am I doing here? Do they need me to be here? Like I feel like I have a bit of an imposter syndrome because I have no like real tech knowledge. I'm not a computer engineer or anything like that. But I think what kind of makes me get out of those thoughts is like think a little bit like, this is a tough moment. It's like going through COVID is a tough moment. If you look back 5 years ago, those are early days. But we got through it. We got better. And then there's more kind of innovation come out of that period than ever before. So I kind of take a little bit longer term approach. Is this something I want to do? Do I see myself doing this in 3 years or 5 years from now? And if yes, then this is a short bump on the road. You can take a couple of days off. You can talk. Like, there's an employee resource that you can utilize. You can talk to your family, because one way, yeah, it's like everybody's elastic. Sometimes you can stretch yourself, but if you stretch too much, it breaks, right? So try to talk to your close friends, your family, like, what is that breaking point? I definitely don't want to reach that breaking point because there's no coming back after. But just take a little bit longer term approach. And honestly, I think a lot of people give themselves too little credit. They're doing a good job in the current role. They're still there, and they make changes. Maybe not like daily change that you can see, but if you look back, 12 months from now, like you made an impact. Think a little bit long term to be resilient because you may go through a tough moment right now, but it will pass.
I would put my own little spin on that everybody turned out better post COVID. I think some people did, some didn't. And the ones who did definitely had that longer term perspective that you're referring to. So, what framework or ritual, if I might call it that way, helps you recenter under pressure?
Yeah, I've tried many different things over the last couple of years. Some are healthy, some are unhealthy habits. But I try to like move myself from like my daily work. Like I ride motorcycle. I try to do exercise, try to do the healthier habits. I also disengage sometimes. Just turn off the phone. Go somewhere that's like can't be reached. Although my wife doesn't really like that. But sometimes you gotta be a little bit selfish. And it's like I need a day off. Just treat myself to something that I like to do, like your own hobbies. Oh, and it's very important to have a hobby outside of work. You can't just go from work to home and then back to work again. It's got to be like a healthy third place. Like it reminds me like, like the show. I mean, can I kind of date myself? Like the Friends, they all go hang out at the coffee shop. So you gotta have like find like third place between home and work. Like for your mental health, I think mental health is very important these days. Because there's just so much stress. And try not to compare yourself to your to what's on Instagram or Facebook. Just kind of focus on yourself sometimes. Like I said, you're doing a better job than you give yourself credit for sometimes. Like I said, and you have to tell people like say no, learn to say no. You can't be everywhere for everyone. You're not a robot. So learn to say no and have like a hobby and have like a third place between work and home.
How has your MBA experience at Ivy Business School shaped your resilience and or your leadership toolkit?
I think it built a foundation. Like I said, like MBA was a stressful time. In comparison to my undergrad, MBA was like 10 times harder, 10 times more competitive. And they kind of give you like a foundation. Like I learned a lot about myself under pressure, like how to deal with stress, how to deal with deadlines, and how to deal with people that I don't like, and also working with people that I enjoy. So really took a lot of like inward kind of looking, like what am I good at? What you know do I want to do in the future? And I remember there was one kind of leadership class. They did this exercise where you tell you to close your eyes, think about time you're on your deathbed, surrounded by people. Who do you want to be there? And what do they want them to say about you, down the road? And those kind of like the long term thoughts that taunts me sometimes because I'm like, am I too hard on my kids? Are they gonna be there when I need them? So it's more like I said, the legacy you want to leave behind, but the foundation was definitely from the early days of MBA, just like dealing with stress, think long term, and invest your time well with the people that you like.
You touched upon legacy. So I want to know, what kind of impact do you want to leave when we're all gone? What does legacy mean to you in banking, in leadership, being a parent, in your own life? Give me a sense of that.
Yeah. So the short answer in banking, it's easy. You just put your name on the documents, on the loan documents, on the policy documents, then you're there forever because banks take a long time to change policies and they don't really take anybody's name off there. For some for legal purposes, some for just kind of operational. So that was easy. And then you have every deal that you done, it goes to corporate history. It doesn't get deleted. That was easy. But the real impact I want to say in the tech community is like, hey, I was there at we're at the forefront. We were the ones that built this ecosystem from ground up. No, I'm proud to say, like I said, we have reached over 50% of the market share. So 1 in 2 tech companies in Canada now bank with us. And also the relationship I built with my clients along the way, because they're not going to remember the details of the deals you did, but they'll remember how during a tough time, how you helped them out. And those kind of have more lasting impact on the business and on the personal life as well. So I would say like build relationships that last in the workplace. On the personal side, there's something I also, like I said earlier, like kind of struck with my kids, and like that's kind of the future. That's what at least what they say, the kids of the future. But also with my my parents, my spouse, my in-laws, my brother. I want gonna your reputation precedes you. So what is them what I want them to see me when I'm not in the room? What do they say about me when I'm not in the room? So I always try to be my authentic self. I'm not perfect. I don't try to be perfect anymore. And also kind of be realistic and have like that open dialogue. Like if someone's doing something you don't like, maybe talk to them. I might receive feedback the same way, but maybe you can ask them how do they want to have that communication style. Some people like direct, some people like sugarcoat stuff, but really invest time and your resource with people that you like because you only have one life to live. And there are some mistakes, you know, which you watch, like you said in the movies, that you regret. Oh, I should have been nicer. I shouldn't have spent more time, and regret, because people will remember the good times you had together, and not so much of remember what you say to them or the money you spend with them, but more to do with like how did you make them feel. At the end of the day, is what they remember.
Undoubtedly, how you make people feel resonates with them much after you're probably even lost touch with those individuals. I completely reckon with everything that you said about leaving an impact in your personal life and people that you interact with. Most of our listeners are typically male, aged between 18 and 45. To any one of those individuals listening now, whether from Vancouver or outside of Vancouver, what would be that one piece of advice that you'd want them to carry forward from this conversation?
I think if there's any one takeaway, I would say like, be willing to kind of reinvent yourself from time to time, and be adaptable. You know, I think for me, from my personal experience, it was like the world doesn't revolve around you, and you have to kind of be adapt to the changes that's happening around you, whether you like it or not. You can either kind of go scream and shout, or you kind of build a plan and try to thrive in this changing environment. So for me, it's like willing to reinvent yourself and adapt to the ever changing world.
Daxin, thank you for sharing your journey with us. What stands out to me in particular is your ability to pivot across industries while holding on to a mindset of curiosity, collective accountability, learning, and optimism. For those listening, if you enjoyed this conversation as much as we did, please subscribe, share, and leave us a comment. Your support helps bring global voices like Daxin's to more ears around the world. Until next time, keep learning, keep leading, and keep swinging forward.